The third generation of the taxi-class Mercedes E-Class is the last one that can be purchased cheaply, maintained relatively inexpensively, and rewarded with exceptional mechanical durability. It's a worthy and modern successor to the iconic Barrel, and some examples have already clocked 500,000 kilometers and are still running. As is typical for larger Mercedes models, the E-Class features a longitudinally mounted engine and either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, 4MATIC, with a traditional differential. The front and rear suspension are multi-link, with 4 aluminum wishbones at the front and 5 at the rear. The Airmatic air suspension system uses bellows that adjust the vehicle's ride height based on load and speed. The shock absorber damping force is also adjustable, precisely enough for the computer to control compression and rebound separately. The steering system is hydraulically assisted with variable power assist and variable ratio, and the braking system in pre-facelift cars is electro-hydraulically controlled, SBC. This brings the E-Class to a new level of technological advancement in the operation of electronic skid control and stability control systems. The list of engines for this model, as with many Mercedes-Benz models from years past, is very long. The model designations are also significant, as they almost directly indicate which engine we're dealing with. However, instead of presenting the traditional engine versions, we'll start with a list of designations and a brief description of the engine. In the above list, the designation Florida refers to the version available after the facelift, i.e. from 2006. The exception to the rule is the E300 CDI model, which went on sale only in 2008. It was the only diesel variant of this car that met the Euro 5 standard, but it was not homologated for it. So the documents mention Euro 4. Euro 5 was only in force from September 2009. Versions without the Florida designation were offered until 2006, though some longer, but these are designated as flat. The 4MATIC designation, in parentheses, indicates that the engine variant was optionally offered with 4-wheel drive. If the car does not have a 6-speed manual gearbox, it has either a 5-speed automatic or, from 2004, a 7-speed automatic. I'll also mention the rare E200 NGT version powered by natural gas. This car is unsuitable for use in our market, and there's no reason to import it. I'll also point out that this article completely ignores the 2 AMG versions. Which engine to choose? The choice of engines and versions of this car is so wide that you can tailor it to your preferences, needs, and budget. The rule is simple. The larger the engine and the more cylinders, the higher the maintenance costs. The same applies to petrol and diesel engines. However, in the case of diesels, the costs are potentially much higher than their petrol counterparts. Almost any engine is sufficient for this model. Mercedes has only saved power in the entry-level diesel versions, especially the 102 horsepower Taxi version. It's best not to buy it. However, the E220 CDI model at least offers adequate performance. The choice of 4-cylinder engines is limited, but even the facelifted E200 compressor with 184 horsepower is already a car that drives quite briskly and uses the least fuel of any gasoline engine. It's a happy medium between cost and dynamics. Both before and after the facelift, it's practically the same highly successful design, requiring only frequent oil changes, leak checks, and timing chain inspections. These 6 engines offer high refinement and good performance, and even better V8s. Don't be afraid of them. You just need to be aware of their design: 2-cylinder banks, 2-cylinder heads. The naturally aspirated units from the M112 and M113 families are closely related, offered only before the facelift, and are very durable. When maintained in good condition, they achieve the highest mileage of all the engines in this model and easily handle running on LPG. This conversion is a very good alternative to powerful diesels, which consume several liters per 100 kilometers less, but use significantly more expensive fuel. The facelifted M272 and M273 counterparts should be viewed quite differently. These weren't as successful, struggling primarily with their timing chain. The timing chain often had to be replaced after less than 100,000 kilometers. Even if the timing chain didn't kill these engines, they would self-destruct due to faulty cylinder liners, worn cylinder liners, rotating bearings, or a faulty intake manifold control system. Repaired and improved in time, they could still last a long time. Nevertheless, when purchasing these engines, you should approach them with a great deal of caution and consider the possibility of replacement, as repair costs are currently prohibitive. Among the V6 engines, one stands out, found in the E350 CGI model. It develops the highest power output but features direct petrol injection. This is essentially the only significant difference from other M272 variants, but it's worth knowing when shopping for an LPG-powered car. Of particular note in this model are the diesel engines, popular in their day, though today, unfortunately, the vast majority have high mileage, often literally worn out. The 4-cylinder 2.1-liter OM646 engine found its way under the hood of many Mercedes-Benzes and has received a variety of differing opinions. This engine's general problems are intake manifold and injection system failures, but it's not a bad engine. Properly maintained or repaired, it will travel 1,000,000 kilometers. However, if durability and record mileage are your priorities, the only right choice is the inline 5 or 6-cylinder OM647 and OM648. These engines were offered only until the facelift, while the R6 engine was only offered until 2005. They are simple, extremely durable, and virtually trouble-free, thanks to the sensitive injection system. Interestingly, despite the difference in displacement and cylinder count, they develop the same power of 177 horsepower in models designated as E270 and E280. Only the E320 CDI variant achieved a higher power output of 204 horsepower. The successor, since 2005, to the highly successful inline engines is the 3-liter V6, the OM642. These are decent but not as successful and are prone to serious malfunctions, such as rotating bearings or intake manifold failures. The oil pump fails quite frequently. The durability of the injection system also leaves something to be desired. The V8 OM628 and M629 engines were at the top of the diesel spectrum. Even if they were successful, they weren't entirely worth buying, with fuel consumption approaching 10 liters per 100 kilometers, and performance barely better than the more powerful V6 diesel versions. This engine made sense when new, primarily for its prestige and range, but now it's considered something extra. Due to the relatively low popularity of this engine, reliable information on its durability is difficult to obtain. I'll start with an unusual summary. The Mercedes E-Class, for a high-end car and very modern for its time, is still an above-average durable and generally trouble-free car, provided it's not worn out. In this case, it's truly worth buying a well-maintained example, even at a 30 to 40% higher price. The lower the mileage, provided it's genuine, the better for the next owner. The braking system and the SBC system are the most concerning features of this car. Even the manufacturer itself admitted that this solution was a failure and withdrew it with the facelift. In short, it's about complete and, above all, independent computer control of the braking system. The brake pedal is purely electronic and not mechanically linked to the system. The system was supposed to sense threats and the driver's intentions and control the brakes to ensure they function as efficiently as possible, while also supporting the electronic anti-skid systems ESP, ASR, BAS. In the event of an SBC system failure, a purely mechanical system was activated, so it wasn't like losing brakes. However, this is a fallback mode, and the system's performance is limited. After such a failure, a direct visit to a repair shop was necessary, preferably by tow truck. Due to the importance of the vehicle's braking system, the SBC control unit had an artificially limited number of actuations. This was necessary to reduce the potential risk of failure. Therefore, after a calculated number of brake applications, the unit had to be replaced with a new one. It's similar to changing the oil after a computer-calculated mileage based on operating conditions. For the first E-Class owner, this wasn't usually a problem, as the car was then relegated to the used car market after a few years. Nevertheless, Mercedes, mindful of its reputation and attentive to driver dissatisfaction, occasionally offered discounts of up to 100% on SBC unit replacements, but ultimately abandoned the idea. Over the years, specialized workshops have developed a solution to the problem, which involves disabling the SBC counter, but also performing frequent system inspections. SBC pumps can also be rebuilt, and the control unit's number reset. In practice, the system is quite reliable, and even the oldest, accident-free vehicles that have been serviced experience no problems. It's important to have the braking system serviced at a workshop with the appropriate diagnostic tester and by mechanics familiar with this solution. In cars with an SBC system, it's crucial to change the brake fluid every 2 years regardless of the results of the inspection, and to charge the 12-volt battery twice a year. The proper functioning of the SBC system depends on the battery's condition. Another costly repair area is the air suspension. There are OEM replacements available, so repairs aren't prohibitively expensive, around €2,400 for parts plus replacement. However, the suspension in this car can be expensive to repair. It has a large number of wishbones, and a cost-effective repair will quickly require another service. One of the serious problems found in cars manufactured before 2005 is coolant leaking into the automatic transmission oil. This is due to a flawed design that can be corrected by installing an external transmission cooler. Today, this is a rather marginal problem and may only affect very low mileage and therefore very expensive models. The Mercedes W211's bodywork no longer rusts like its predecessors. And unless the car has a history of bodywork repairs involving welding, cutting, and filler, it shouldn't look too bad. Corrosion efflorescence appears on the underbody, door edges, and rear wheel arches. The hood, front fenders, and trunk lid are made of aluminum. Replacing rear light bulbs is quite expensive, as the bulb itself can't be replaced. The entire assembly is replaced, which costs between €200 and €400 when new. Therefore, many owners of older cars are compelled to look for used ones, which are available at a similar price or higher. Importantly, these are durable components that only need to be replaced once in a lifetime. The Mercedes E-Class is plagued by electrical and electronic faults in many areas, primarily equipment components. However, these faults don't prevent continued driving unless a fault occurs with the ignition module, preventing the car from starting. The SAM module often requires replacement. You can buy a used one for tens or hundreds of euros, depending on the model and seller. Water leaking into the trunk is also often responsible for the problem.